Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday, October 2nd, North Middlesex Council meeting. Roll call, Councillor Daigle is not with us tonight. I believe he's out on holidays. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. If there is any, please forward them through to Alan. Minutes of the previous meeting. Any errors or omissions or business arising from that? Seeing none, we need movement of the minutes. Councillor Nerda, Councillor Irwin, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our first item is public meeting for drainage. Meeting to consider the Canada Company Drain North 2024. And good evening. Are you ready, Joanne?
I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Mayor and members of council, the meeting to consider the engineer's report for the Canada Company Drain. This report was prepared by Ardobin Engineering Incorporated under Section 78 of the Drainage Act. This drain has a large watershed which outlets into the Ausable River. The request is to improve the open channel with a clean out, bank resloping, and berming of lower banks. The engineer's estimate of cost is $250,082. The proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receive the final report for the Canada Company Drain North dated September 13th, 2024, prepared by Ardobin Engineering Incorporated, and that the first sitting of the quarter revision on behalf of the Canada Company Drain North be scheduled to be held on November the 6th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Is there anything you'd like to add at this time, Josh?
So through the chair, I'll give a brief overview and then be available for any comments or questions. My name's Josh Warner. I'm from Ardobin Engineering, and I prepared the Canada Company Drain North report. The report has been prepared under Section 78 of the Drainage Act. The report proposes the 1,850 meter drain be improved with a clean out, bank resloping, and berm adjacent the channel in lower areas in order to reduce flooding of the adjacent fields and road. As part of the project, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans required the replacement of gravel and cobble substrate where required, a temporary rock flow check dam and sediment trap near the outlet, and two temporary sediment traps. The report also provides provisions for maintenance of the culverts along the length of the drain. As Joanne mentioned, the total estimated cost is $250,082. The report also includes a detailed breakdown of assessments, provisions for maintenance, specifications, and drawings. At this time, I'm available for any comments or questions.
All right. Thank you, Josh. At this time, is there any questions or comments from affected landowners on this drain? And if there is, if you could come up to the podium and just give your name and your comments. Can you come up here to the podium, please? Give your name and.
Josh Leiber. I live at 36091 Ben Road. So I'm affected by this. My question is, why is this? I believe it's all being put under as a new build. So some landowners there, they're going to be compensated for going on their land. When last fall, there was a bunch of maintenance done and it was where it was a ditch clean out, things like that. They called maintenance. So there was no compensation to those landowners. This one just seems to have a lot more compensation for some guys, and they're going to go in and clean the drain out, which needs done, you know, and we're gonna be responsible because our sediment stuff goes down that way, and that is what it is. But this new resloping and building of the berm, I don't think should be on the responsibility of every other landowner to contribute, because it only benefits a few people, not everybody that's contributing to it. My question is basically why.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to answer? Josh?
Yeah, so through the chair, so the maintenance done was only brushing. So the work under this report is completely new. Basically, we're resloping the banks and therefore occupying more of the adjacent farm fields. So we're required to pay an allowance for right of way for taking up that area, as well as an allowance for crop damage. And so that's a requirement under any report that's prepared under Section 78 or 4, there's a requirement to pay compensation for loss of land and crop damage. In terms of the assessments, certainly they're paying a benefit assessment for the improvements to their properties, but the drain is handling upstream waters, and that's why the entirety of the watershed pays as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Josh? Okay, maybe you get an opportunity to speak after as well. Joanne?
In regards to the mayor and members of council, there is under maintenance, there's no compensation for landowners as far as allowances.
What was that? So under maintenance, there's no compensation. Okay. Thank you. Okay, is there any other questions at this time on this drain? Seeing none, questions from council? Councillor Canellison.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Josh, my question is for you. And this improvement on the Canada Drain, how will that reduce or will it reduce the flooding on the extreme westerly end of this land mass?
Again, through the chair. So we're basically building up the banks to increase the storage within the Canada Company drain. Right now, under largest storm events, the drainage of the Canada Company drain is restricted by the lake levels of the Saubel River. And basically the water levels build up so much that it overtops the banks and floods out then a large amount of their fields. So by building up the banks, we're increasing the storage that the channel has to handle larger storm events.
Now, have you been to the site in the last 6 or 7 weeks?
Through chair, no, I don't, not in the last 6 or 7 weeks. I think we were on site 4 or 5 times within the last year, but not that recently.
There's some suggestion that there may be significant amounts of fill being trucked in from the Oakwood Golf Course. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of the Oakwood Golf Course transporting fill to the Canada Company drain, though.
Okay.
Any other questions from council? I do have one, and I think you said this one is emptying right in directly into the river. Is that right? Into the Saubel?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Direct draining into the Saubel River, what you said, right? Is there any sort of gate preventing a Saubel water from coming into this range? So that's not gonna make a difference.
Through the chair, no, there isn't anything, but essentially we're increasing the amount that the drain can handle under larger storm events. There's no gate stopping the water from Canada Company going into the Saubel River. Once the rivers in the river are higher, we're building up the Canada Company so that we can accommodate that.
All right, any other questions from council? Councillor Canellison.
Yes, just have a follow-up for Josh. Just thinking about what we talked about here for a few minutes, and I had the same discussion at the Conservation Authority, and I questioned why what all the water being released from the dam was contributing to the flooding at that end, and they assured me that it was not from the dam at all, but it came from the Pete Seeby drain. Is there any merit to that?
Through the chair, without looking into it further, I'm not sure. I know there's a lot of background in terms of the dam, which I don't have at this point.
Thank you.
Joanne, maybe you could get an answer. You could send an answer to council on that. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? We have a recommendation in front of us, and it's to come back for quarter revision if it is approved on November the 6th, I believe it is. What is council's wish on this drain? Moved by Councillor Canellison, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. In favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next item is to consider the Gilbert Windsor drain for 2024. And so Joanne.
Mayor and members of council, this is the meeting to consider the engineer's report for the Gilbert Windsor Drain 2024. And this report was prepared by RDOB Engineering Incorporated under Section 4 and 78 of the Drainage Act. This drain was designed to a drainage coefficient of 38 millimeters in 24 hours. Cassidy Road will be crossed by Jack and Boar, and the Windsor Road will be crossed by Open Cut. It's a new tile drain will be constructed as Branch D and tied into the Branch A. Branch A will be replaced from the west side of Cassidy Road and outlets into the main drain. A portion of the main drain will be replaced from the outlet to the open channel, and the open channel portion of the main drain will be enclosed for approximately 15 meters. The engineer's estimate of cost is $319,865. The proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receive the final report for the Gilbert Windsor Drain 2024, dated September 4th, 2024, prepared by RDOB and Engineering Incorporated, and that the first sitting of the quarter revision on behalf of the Gilbert Windsor Drain 2024 be scheduled to be held on November the 6th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Josh, on this one, something you'd like to add?
Yeah, again, through the chair, I'll give a brief overview and then make myself available for comments or questions. I think this might be a bit of a repeat of Joanne's, but so yeah, the Gilbert Windsor drain the report proposes the construction of branch D. So the drain's constructed from the east side of Windsor Road and ties into the Gilbert Windsor drain branch A and lot 20 concession 8 and shall be a 12-inch or 300 millimeter diameter tile. The report also proposed the replacement of branch A from the west side of Cassidy Road to its outlet into the main drain with 16-inch, so 400 mil diameter and 21-inch, 525 mil diameter tile. The report also proposes a replacement of the main drain from branch A to its outlet into the open channel and an enclosure downstream with 825 millimeter diameter tile. The report provides updated schedules of maintenance for the main drain, so the open and closed portions, branch A, branch B, and C. Again, the total estimated cost is $319,865. At this time, available for any comments or questions.
All right, thank you, Josh. I'll ask once again if there's any questions from affected landowners on this drain. Seeing none. Any questions from council on this drain? No questions from council? You have a recommendation in front of you. Moved by Councillor Keo, seconded by Councillor Nerda. In favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn council to sit as Committee of Adjustment at 6:12. Councillor Irwin, seconded by Councillor Keo. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our first item for planning is a notice of public meeting to consider application B21-2024 located at 2870 Elm Tree Drive, and it's Kyle and Whitney Kennedy. And Ashley, go ahead. Have we got the applicants here? I should ask. Sorry. Would you like to come up front here? Is there another chair that we can get? A couple more. Sorry. Ashley, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Roth. So the subject application proposes to sever a surplus farm dwelling from an existing 100-acre farm at 2870 Elm Tree Drive, which is located just east of Center Road on the north side of Elm Tree Drive. And I'm just going to share my screen so you're able to see the map. Right. So the severed parcel is in red here. It's proposed to have a frontage of approximately 37 feet along Elm Tree Drive and an area of approximately 2.47 acres. It contains a single detached dwelling and a detached garage, is currently serviced by municipal water and a private septic system, and has an existing driveway access to Elm Tree Drive. The retained parcel, which is the yellow on the map, is proposed to have a frontage of approximately 388 meters along Elm Tree Drive, an area of approximately 97.53 acres, and currently contains agricultural lands and crop production, a grain silo, and a manure storage pit. There is no water or sanitary servicing the retained parcel, and as part of the conditions of the application, a field access will need to be installed or confirmed. The subject lands are designated in the North Middlesex official plan as an agricultural area and contains hazard lands and significant woodlands on the rear of the farmland, and they are zoned general agricultural in the North Middlesex zoning bylaw. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and municipality's official plan generally permits lot creation in agricultural areas to dispose of a dwelling surplus to a farm operation as a result of farm consolidation subject to evaluation criteria. Staff are satisfied that the criteria have been met or can be appropriately addressed via the conditions of consent as outlined in greater detail in my report. Notice of the application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. The Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority, Bell Canada, the North Middlesex Fire Chief, and the County Engineer noted no concerns with the application. Standard conditions for consent of this nature were recommended by the County Emergency Services Department, the North Middlesex Director of Infrastructure and Operations, and the Chief Building Official. This includes but is not limited to a new 911 address being assigned for the farmland, The service locations are confirmed to be wholly contained to the lot that they service, and that the driveway connection between the severed and retained parcel be removed. Additionally, a zoning bylaw amendment application and hydro easement application will be required as a condition of approval. No public comments were submitted prior to the submission of this report. Staff are recommending that the rear lot line be reduced to the minimum required for the accessory structure, so this can increase the amount of agricultural land left with the retained farmland. Additionally, staff note there is an unused manure storage on the retained farmland, and we are recommending that it be removed. In consultation with OMAFRA and in accordance with the minimum distance separation formula guidelines, staff have confirmed that MDS1 setbacks are required and applied where there is an unused manure storage on the property that is deemed structurally sound by the chief building official. This is because while the manure storage is not currently in operation, it could be converted back at a future time. If the manure storage were to remain, the required minimum distance calculated in OMAFRA's AgriSuite program, based on the information provided by the applicant, is just over 1,000 feet, whereas approximately 730 is being proposed. It is staff's opinion that, whereas a 730 foot reduction is proposed. It's staff's opinion that this distance is not considered minor in nature and would not be in a position to support such a reduction with a minor variance at this point in time. Should the manure storage be determined to not be structurally sound enough to hold manure, MDS1 setbacks are not required. However, staff are of the opinion that the structure would then be considered derelict and should be removed so the lands can be utilized for agricultural crop production. So staff are recommending that the severance be approved with the conditions outlined in the report.
Thank you, Ashley. At this time, applicant, something you'd like to, your comments?
We're not in the, due to the staff recommendations of reducing the rear lot line. I drive a transport and that's where I park. So that's why in that last little bit of driveway beside the detached garage, and I have my fuel tanks to access fuel and DEF fluid as well in that building. So I just use the room just behind it just to keep the driveway clear and useful.
Okay. That's it. We have no written submissions. Is there any public comments on this application? No public comments? Council committee, Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor. Kyle, are you looking to amend any conditions that are there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the reduction of the rearmost lot line. And number 16. Yeah, there.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yep.
My name is Paul Kennedy. I'm a brother and also farm this land. And I think there was some discretion between what was thought as an unused. It was not being used currently when the application was submitted. But I do occasionally use that manure pit, and it is also part of my Nutrient Management Act and best management practices for my hog operation. So it does store manure occasionally, but for less than 14 days, which from what we were told is still satisfactory under the Nutrient Management Act as a short-term storage facility. So that's why we're looking for number 16 to be amended as well or discussed.
Okay, thank you. John?
Then my question would be to Ashley, is that acceptable to keep that as short-term storage if they're bringing it in off-site?
There is wording in the MDS guidelines that if it's stored for 14 days or less, that MDS may not apply. I'd really want to consult with OMAFRA on how that is guaranteed so that the MDS requirements remain in effect. Well, I appreciate that the severed parcel is going to family now. That may not always be the case in the future. And any MDS relief we would require would have to go through an additional planning process.
Okay.
What do you think, fellas?
So your recommendation is currently
So My recommendation would still be to demolish it as in my report. Just my understanding based on the information provided in the time of application. However, should the committee wish to amend the condition, perhaps we could reword it that MDS compliance be confirmed. That way, if we can consult with OMAFRA farther, and if zoning relief is required, we could explore bringing it back and leave the condition in if that's not achievable, that it be demolished.
Is that acceptable?
So that we tabled for further discussion then.
It would be, she's suggesting if the committee decides, her recommendation is going to be demolish it. If the committee decides to amend that to defer that part of the decision to get more research into it, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So that saying is an option, but your recommendation still stays to have it demolished as far as your recommendation.
Yeah, it's quite a substantial reduction that would be required just based on the information provided. Staff would not be in a position to support a reduction of that nature at this point in time. However, if you would like to amend the condition as a committee member, we can go back to OMAFRA and discuss further.
Okay, thank you. Okay, John, or Councillor Keel, sorry.
Well, that's okay. We're all on a first name basis.
Deputy Mayor Hodgins. And then Councillor Irwin.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm one of these ones that know my farm, and I do know what farm services are all about, surplus farm supplements is all about. I have my beliefs in what some of them should be, way they should be laid out. And I'm not just in my own, I'm hearing it from other farmers as to why are you allowing that? Why are you doing this and everything else? And just sort of following some of their advice, but trying to keep within the rules that we have here. One of the things I've always been against, and I have a list here, if you'll bear with me, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of it. I mean, I never went for these flag poles type services, you know, they just way a farm lot is, they're rectangular, the full square. That's the way a severance should be too, square. And I understand there's farmland there and everything, all those. I have done some in the past where the line comes, the visible line, and the land is still worked out in front, even though it's on that property. I am at this time, I mean, I'm willing to understand the fact of the deference to the information on the manure storage. Before that deference, I was up to, I would like to see it eliminated, and that the information that we get from that will determine that. One other thing here, when you look at it, and again, explain by yourself, I says, why is the far back red line so far back? I would like to have seen it closer to the shed, but you've explained that as to why you want a truck turnaround. I don't know. I mean, there's other places to put a truck turnaround. It's not my place, and you know what you need and where you've had it in past, and I'm not trying to object that way. One other thing I look at this here is, and I'm not sure whether you are just adjacent landowner. But being as where it is, and I did confer with or talk with my director of infrastructure today, and I says, there would have to be a second laneway put in there to, I would be part of that, because you cannot use the separate property laneway. All the way back, if the manure storage was to stay. I'm also looking at where it is on the farm, and one of the questions I had with my director, how many farm laneways are allowed? Like in that case, would there be one on each side of that laneway? Because as we know, the easiest convenience way is to take it to the road as fast as you can without having to go all the way up and around and come out one laneway on one side. And he gave me the answer that it is doable. It's normally just one, but it is doable to have two. So he gave me a sufficient enough answer in that. The one thing is going back to it, the one thing I do not like to see is the flagpole. I wish it was that. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with the 2.5. It meets everything else. I'm just going to deny it tonight on the fact that it's a flagpole. And I'm sure my other councillors will counteract that, and I'll be the only one off to that side, but we'll see what they have to say. Thank you.
Do you have a comment to that?
Yeah. So are you suggesting to square off the lot and make it because with the having the possibility of being more than 2.47 acres or?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I realize the way it's set up there, you are at 2.5 now.
Yeah,
If you
okay.
square it off, it isn't gonna,
No,
there's
yeah.
no way it's gonna work.
It's well over.
It's just gonna be one of those ones that's gonna get denied if it's over 2.5. The precedent is this, we've done these before. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean it doesn't go through. And I'm just being honest with you, everything else. I prefer to see it square. And I know we'll be doing trying, some ideas will be coming forward going into the future is to our strategic plan, I guess is what it's called. And maybe we'll rectify it, maybe we won't, but for the time being, I guess it is acceptable to the township. It's just, I'm denying it because it's a flagpole, so don't. So, other than that,
Okay, thank you. And you have made those comments on other situations. So it's not on this, it's on,
Yeah.
it's just making his feelings felt, which is the proper thing to do. Counselor Irwin and then Counselor Nerda.
Thank you, your worship. Through you, I just want to clarify, if we can make that map a little bigger, please. The area outlined in red, is that sufficient for your truck parking and turnaround, or did you want to, are you suggesting a change?
No, the red is sufficient,
It
but
is sufficient, okay. I just want to clarify that. Thank you very much.
Okay, Counselor Nerda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was also my question, but I do just want to make sure that your concerns are heard. You said that there were two conditions that you were looking to amend. I know that you were looking to amend 16. Was there another one that you had said? I
No.
just don't know what number.
It was a suggestion of moving the lot line to only 9 meters behind the shed. And but the map is, the map is accurate to what the proposal is.
and there is also on number 13, there's also already a pit water meter at the road. And that's been in there since the water line has been put in.
I just want to clarify, the meter is at the road now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, Counselor Nerda.
I don't think so are your conditions then, you just want to amend 16 and 13? Are those the two? I just want to make sure that I understand correctly.
Yeah. As long as I guess it's being agreed upon at the 2.47 acres and not the 1.8, then yes, it's just those number 16 and number 13 conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Are you good with that, Counselor Nerda? You are? Counselor Canellison?
Thank you, Mayor Rob. My question is for the planner. And one thing maybe I wasn't paying attention, but who inspected the manure storage tank?
So the onus is on the applicant to provide the information in the application, as well as the chief building official under the MDS guidelines to go out and take a look. So that's why it was included as a condition, as something that they would fulfill as part of the consent. So that's who the onus would be on.
So my understanding then is that no one's actually looked at and inspected it.
No, not at this point.
Okay.
Yep.
But I just struggle with how we can condemn it if no one's actually inspected it.
Exactly, yeah. So my understanding, it was an unused manure tank. There was some email correspondence that it hasn't been used in approximately 24 years. So potentially that may have been some miscommunication there. So yeah, I was working with the information I was provided.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Hall, did you have another comment?
yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just looking and I kind of zoomed in a little bit more on the piece of the turnaround. I can actually see in the bigger aerial picture, the transfer truck looks like it's parked beside the house. Is that the turnaround you've always been using there for the time being without going behind the shed?
No, that is actually when that picture was taken, I was probably washing my truck up by the house, but it's
you-
generally backed up beside the shop towards like the back of the trailer towards the silo.
But you turn around in that turnaround area?
I
there?
turn around, pull up by the
And
house,
back up
back
there.
up to keep the driveway clear for
Okay.
anything to come in
Which
there.
was another part of when I zoomed in, I could see the truck there with, which made me wonder about the red line behind the shed.
Okay.
I'm good. Just.
Any other questions, comments? I want to be clear on the motion that we're voting on or that we're considering. Your recommendation is to remove the manure storage tank and to shorten the lot as well. That's in your recommendation?
So I did note the shorter lot line in the comment section of the report.
Right.
Typically, that's something that we would look at the preliminary survey stage, so it's not explicitly stated in that condition, which would be condition number 14. So I feel that that is okay to leave as is. For number 13 regarding the water meter pit, I believe we should also leave that in there just so we can have some confirmation with our Public Works Department. It's not going to take anything sufficient to clear it, if that is the case. And then as for condition number 16, I believe the direction the committee is going is that they would like it amended so that it states that MDS compliance be confirmed or that the manure storage be demolished and all concrete and debris on the retained parcel to the satisfaction of the chief building official.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Keo.
Thank you, Mayor Ropp. I just do have one concern on behalf of the applicant. The manure storage needs to be inspected. The applicant would like to retain that tank or that storage. What can we do to sufficiently have an inspection to put this to bed that they can keep their tank and still have their severance?
Perfect. Thank you. So through Chair Rob, I would recommend that we go back and discuss with OMAFRA farther regarding the 14-day provision that's outlined in the MDS guidelines. However, that being said, if it's not demonstrated that that is the case, they would require zoning relief in some capacity, whether that be a minor variance or a zoning bylaw amendment. That part is the part that staff's not necessarily supportive of because of the amount of relief that would be requested. However, I think if we reword the condition to what was recommended, it gives us flexibility to explore some options.
Right. Everybody got it? We have a recommendation in front of you. What's the wish of the committee? Yeah, the motion to, as this stands, that's what I'm saying. You need to make a motion of what you,
I make a motion with the expiration of condition 16 with OMAFRA, and if it needs to come back, that we can make we can do a minor variance or a condition of relief.
is that adequate for what you? Yes. Counselor Irwin.
Yeah, I'll second that motion, your worship, and if it does need to come back, then I'd like to say, I'll come back as well.
Okay. So that, I want to be clear, that's, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry. Alan.
Thank you, your worship, and I don't mean to jump in here. I just want to make a clarification that if we are making a resolution that points to a further decision, that decision's not made until we have it at that moment. So we can still point forward, it's just we're not making that decision right now.
Right, we're waiting for some further information on it. But this is also leaving the back line. I want to know in this motion, the way it is. We're not shortening it, right? It is the way it sits, this motion. Okay. Okay, just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. Okay, any other comment? We have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed. Thank you. That is carried. Okay, thank you. You're coming. Our next is a public meeting to consider application B 22/2024 located at 157 John Street. And are the, oh, okay. How are you doing? You're representing?
Yes, your worship.
Okay, go ahead.
Just for the record, it's Paul Hendricks, Hendrikx.
You haven't changed the spelling on it yet.
Nope.
Okay. Okay, Ashley, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Rupp. So the subject application proposes to sever a new residential infill lot from a property known municipally as 157 John Street in the urban settlement area of Park Hill. This is located at the southeast intersection of John Street and Albert Street, and the property is designated in the North Middlesex official plan as residential, as well as zoned residential density 1 R1 in the North Middlesex zoning bylaw. The severed parcel, which is outlined in red, is proposed to have a frontage of approximately 87.8 feet along Albert Street and an area of approximately 0.22 acres. The severed parcel is currently vacant of any buildings or structures, and a new access, water connection, and sanitary connection will be established through the severance and development agreement, which outlines the obligations of the installer of services. That's something that's registered on title of the property, so even if the lot is sold in the future, the new purchaser is well aware. The retained parcel, which is in yellow, is proposed to have a frontage of approximately 93.67 feet along Albert Street and an area of approximately 0.23 acres. The parcel currently contains a single detached residential dwelling that faces Albert Street, and it's serviced by municipal water and sanitary with an existing access also to Albert Street. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and municipalities official plan generally encourage residential intensification in designated settlement areas subject to evaluation criteria. Staff are satisfied that the criteria have been met or can be appropriately met via the conditions of consent that are outlined in greater detail in my report. Notice of the application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. The Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority, Bell Canada, North Middlesex Fire Chief, and County Engineer had no comments. Standard conditions for consent of this nature were recommended by County Emergency Services, the North Middlesex Director of Infrastructure and Operations, and the Chief Building Official, including but not limited to that a new 911 address be assigned for both the severed and retained land. This is because the property to be retained is actually addressed to John Street now, despite facing Albert and having an access off Albert. So that's something that 911 and Emergency Services would like to have updated. Additionally, it will require a grading and drainage plan be approved, that a severance and development agreement be entered into, and that this will include items like tree preservation for the severed lot, and also that it will be kept mowed and maintained in accordance with the municipality's tidy yards bylaw. No public comments were submitted prior to the submission of my report, and staff are of the opinion that the proposed severance is appropriate, consistent with the provincial policy statement, and conforms to the Middlesex County and North Middlesex official plans. So we are therefore recommending that the severance be approved with the conditions outlined in my report.
Thank you, Ashley. Would the applicant have remarks?
Thank you. Just a few comments. I agree with the planner with regards to the comments, and I think that the conditions are reasonable. I want to make one point just for the benefit of council, and then there was one slight amendment to one of the conditions that I wanted to explore. So the comment I want to provide is just that it appears from the drawing that we may be bisecting the little path that runs along the southern border of the property. And I just want to point out that that's not the intention and that it was measured out. We've got 2 meter setback from the house. So all of that should be contained within the retained parcel, just in case anybody was concerned about that. The only thing that I wanted to explore is something that my friend the planner had just raised, which is the 911 number, that they proposed to have a new 911 number on Albert Street, because right now the address is John Street. And when you look at the comments from EMS or from Emergency Services, they had said that they would like to see either that or that the existing dwelling enhance the identification of the 911 property address that's located on the side of the dwelling facing John Street and Albert Street, and that it would include the name John Street. And I'm wondering if council would be open to putting both of those options within this condition, because my client isn't really able to determine which is going to be more onerous, changing their license and every single thing that they have as their address, or trying to put a sign on the side of their house that says their address, including their street name. So if either one would satisfy Emergency Services, I'm wondering if we can just amend the condition so that my client can explore the options, see which one is going to be less painful for them in terms of jumping through those hoops and making a decision. I completely understand why EMS would want the address to be on the street that it fronts on. And so if council would prefer that, that's fine. I just wanted to see if we can include the other option that EMS had, or the Emergency Services had proposed.
Thank you. Ashley, do you have a comment to that?
Yes, through Chair Ropp. So from an Emergency Services perspective, with my current experience as well as past experience, there tends to be a preference for dispatch to have the address where the driveway actually is. In further conversations with the Emergency Services Department at the county, that would be the preference as well. So that would mean changing the address to an Albert Street address. So I would recommend that the condition remains as is. And and that the process to update addressing typically isn't very onerous. I believe the municipality, or in this case, it would be emergency services, notifies the required agencies. And in my past experience, when this is a request of the municipality, there often isn't a cost associated for the person to update their address.
Okay. Thank you. And no further comments. I
No.
will ask any members of the public that want to speak to this. If you'd like to come up to the podium and give your name, please.
My name is Jen Morley and I live at 170 Albert Street. So beside the requested severed location. My questions are to the planner. My knowledge is of previous information when we began building on that street 8 years ago, was that the capacity of the sewage and water was not up to maintenance, and that building anymore along this street wasn't recommended at that time. So my question is, what has changed and what are the strategic plans for Albert Street, as there are many other neighbors that would be potentially looking to sever if this is to be approved?
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Through Chair Ropp. I actually may defer this question to the Director of Infrastructure and Operations. He's a little bit more up to date on the desludging.
Thank you. Through your worship, with respect to the infrastructure capacity on Albert Street here, there is an existing 150 millimeter 6-inch water main that extends across the frontage of this property. It doesn't go all the way to the end of the street, so there is some, I'd say, non-standard servicing for some of the lots, but across the frontage of this lot, there is an adequately sized sanitary sewer and municipal water main available to service the lot.
Well, I think the question she was asking, what has changed to allow the development of this? Because she was told we weren't able to. And so what's changed? I think that's correct. Okay.
Okay. Through your worship, so I don't have the specific background information that was provided to those residents. However, it may just be, the water main is only stubbed out so far down the road, and then it is capped, and then there are some services that extend further south down Albert Street in a bit of a non-standard arrangement. So it may just be lot specific to which lot you're looking at, but across the frontage of this property, there is adequately sized services.
Okay, thank you. I would add to that we are desludging the lagoons. That is allowing us to have some growth. And that one has been desludged this fall and the other one is next year. So both lagoons have been desludged and or will be desludged. And that is providing more capacity than what we had in the past. Okay, I hope that those between us, we answered the question.
I don't know if I can still ask that question in further understanding, of plannings and development of that street. If there is, I recognize there are two different spots in town that have development and lots available for people to build. And so I'm just wondering if this is a severance that occurs, that what could be next to happen on our street? Because we were told that potentially that street just ends and that there should be a roundabout at the end if there's more dwellings along the street. Again, this is information that I was told. And so again, mine is from previous information.
Sure.
But for emergency services to go down and be able to turn around and access more lots along that road. If again, it's to have further development to connect to development that's happening off West Park Drive there, then I'm just open to understanding what's to happen next.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. So through Chair Ropp, I'm currently not aware of any other development proposals on the street at this point in time. That being said, residential intensification through infilling is encouraged by the provincial policy statement as well as the official plans. But at this point in time, I'm not aware of anything specific that's planned for this street.
Okay, thank you. But I think it's a point made that if there's more development on this street and it's a dead end, emergency vehicles have to be able to turn around. I mean, that's a good point made. It's a very valid point made. So,
yeah.
Okay. Is that okay for now? I mean, you can always come in and ask for more clarification as well. Okay, Ashley, go ahead.
Just to add too, so for any future applications, as was the case with this one, we do circulate the fire chief and the emergency services for comment and consultation. So they provide their input at those points in time as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions from public? Seeing none, committee, questions on this? Councillor Canellison.
I just want to acknowledge the inclusion of maintaining a tidy yard, which I think is very important for the neighboring that live adjacent to this property. So I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Any other questions? I would make a comment to your request, if I may, and I guess because I'm aware of emergency vehicles and it's a thing, I would hate to see, for the sake of a bit of inconvenience, I would hate to see ambulance struggle to find that address and to not change it. I think, we're talking about a few dollars and a bit of time instead of what could be potentially someone's health and safety going forward. That would be a concern I would have about not changing it. That's just a personal. Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a recommendation in front of, what is council's wish? To stay longer? Councilor Canellison? What's your?
I'll move the recommendation.
As stands. Okay. Seconded by Councilor Irwin. In favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, council. It's my only matter.
Thanks, Paul. Our next, we need to adjourn Committee of Adjustment and move to public meeting under the Planning Act. Moved by Councilor Nerda, seconded by Councilor Keel. All in favor? Carried. All right. Yep, go ahead.
30 seconds.
Yes, yes. We'll just wait for the clerk to come back, and then we do have another planning, and that is a public meeting to consider application ZBA 2024, located at, we're still in meeting. Located at 2492 Elginfield Street, Flat Acres Road. I'm sorry, it's Andrew Customers. Come on up and we'll give Alan a chance here to come back. He said 30 seconds, his time's up, right? You're going to take notes to start? Okay, so we'll get started. Ashley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. The subject application proposes to rezone 2492 Elginfield Road, which is located on the north side of Elginfield Road, just west of Center Road, from rural industrial, which is M3, to general agricultural site specific. So that will be A1-110 to conform to the underlying North Middlesex official plan designation, which is agricultural, and to recognize the existing lot area of 40.72 acres. The subject lands are located in a predominantly agricultural area, with the property directly to the west containing a rural residential use and an automated restoration and television production site-specific zoning. The provincial policy statement, county official plan, and the municipality's official plan strongly encourage the protection of agricultural lands. In prime agricultural areas, all types, sizes, and intensities of agricultural uses and normal farm practices are promoted and protected. The subject land's existing M3 zoning does permit for a variety of rural industrial uses, which would include but not be limited to abattoirs, agricultural sales and service establishments, an animal clinic, a contractor's yard or shop, a fuel storage yard, and a transportation terminal. And the applicant is applying to rezone the subject lands to conform to the underlying agricultural designation on the property, which would permit for an agricultural use and an associated farm dwelling. Notice of the application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and no concerns were noted by the agencies that were outlined in my report. The North Middlesex Director of Infrastructure and Operations did note that the property is currently not serviced by municipal water, and should that service be required in the future, it would be solely the owner's expense to install. And no public comments were submitted prior to the submission of my report. As noted, the proposed zoning will bring the property into conformity with the underlying official plan designation of agricultural, and staff are therefore of the opinion that the zoning bylaw amendment is appropriate, consistent with the provincial policy statement, and conforms to the relevant official plans. And the recommendation is that my report be received for information and that a bylaw be provided for in the bylaw section of the agenda for approval. And we are recommending the first, second, and third reading occur this evening.
Thank you, Ashley. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, not really. We got out of the livestock industry because I'm tired of it, so we just want to move there and kind of slow
Okay.
down a little.
Okay, thank you. I have to ask if there's any comments from the public. Does your wife want to say anything? Yeah, maybe not in public.
Don't ask.
No comments? Okay. All right, thank you. All right. Comments or questions from council on this? Councilor Canellison.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Actually, my question is for you, and you make reference to the MDS. And while this, the current owner has no interest in establishing a livestock operation, subsequent owners may in fact be wishing to do so if it's zoned agriculture, right? So what would the, is there an opportunity that would meet the MDS requirements to establish, say, a hog operation at the back end of this property?
That's something that's really hard to comment on without knowing the size of the hog operation. And I guess, of course, hogs have typically the largest MDS setback requirements. But that's something that they'd have to have a nutrient management consultant look into at that point in time, and it would be based on their specific proposal.
Well, the nutrient management, they can have other properties elsewhere, correct? So my question is it possible that a livestock operation could be created on this property and still meet the MDS?
That's really difficult for me to comment on without knowing the size of the operation.
I see. Okay.
But that's something that you can use the AgriSuite OMAFRA calculator to determine. It is a 40-acre parcel. So yeah, it is really a case-by-case basis, and you need a little bit more specifics than that.
Well, it doesn't help much, but thank you anyway.
Any other questions? I did have one. I had a bit of a concern with losing the industrial, but talking with Ashley this morning, we talked, and it's outside of the area that we would be considering in our new official plan. So I think it does meet, it won't interfere with that. That's what I'm getting at. I did have a concern up until we chatted about that, that would fall outside of what we were talking about. So I'm okay with it.
Just
No
to add
questions?
to, there's a lot of regulated area to the west there. So when you're looking at a boundary expansion, that's something that you'd want to consider as well. If you're going to have protected area and then continue the development on the other side of it. So just to add on to what the mayor was saying there.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions, we have a recommendation in front of us. What's your way? Moved by Councilor Keel, second by Councilor Nerda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Department reports. The first one is from, it's Abby's report, and that is on the provincial planning update.
Thank you, Your Honor. So next slide. That's okay. All right, so I'm here to talk about the recent provincial changes, including Bill 185, the Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act, and the new provincial planning statement that was announced through that provincial announcement. So this document builds upon the draft that I previously presented to council back in April. The document represents a more permissive planning framework, and it has an effective date. It's quite a quick effective date of October 20th of this year. So council may be aware that there are some transition regulations that are being consulted on by the province that does not impact North Middlesex at this time. They are more or less looking at official plan documents that have been appealed under the previous provincial policy statement, and just looking how those matters will be dealt with before the tribunal. Next slide. So from a growth management perspective, the new document provides for a planning horizon of 20 to 30 years.
which is different from the current provincial policy statement, which provides for 25 years. So it does provide municipalities with a little bit more flexibility in regards to how far out they're going to project growth. I think that that's a welcome change. So population and employment projections are to be based on those produced by the Ministry of Finance. And we receive those from the province, I believe, every 2 years. They actually just released the new ones yesterday. The document eliminates the requirement for municipal comprehensive reviews and instead considers need, supply, infrastructure, alternative locations, agricultural impact, and the phased progression of urban development. So what that means for us is that applicants, so landowners, can now apply to expand the municipality's settlement area boundaries by way of privately initiated official plan amendments. And through the changes that were imposed to the Planning Act through Bill 185, those types of official plan amendments are now appealable by applicants, whereas prior they were shielded from appeals to kind of give the municipality full jurisdiction as to how their boundaries will grow. Next slide. So in terms of agriculture, the document now requires planning authorities to use an agricultural systems approach. So essentially, this just means that it supports both the protection of the farmland as well as the viability of the agri-food sector. So there's a bit of an economic development component associated with that, and just the protection of businesses that support the agricultural industry and kind of a more cohesive approach to that. On the additional residential unit front in agricultural areas, the document did does include new policy direction speaking to those. So I have some examples of the requirements that the province is looking for, which includes that the ARUs be clustered with the primary dwelling or farm buildings on the property, compliance with MDS, limited in scale, as well as consideration for public health and safety, and some other items as well. The lot creation policies were not changed. So the document does not provide for residential lot creation in agricultural areas, which was originally proposed last year. However, there has been a slight tweak to the language as it pertains to surplus farm dwelling severances. And it now states that one new residential lot can be created per farm consolidation, which is new. So if we had a lot that had 2 dwellings on it, within the confines of the current provincial planning framework, we would be able to sever off both houses. In the future, the farmer will have to pick one or the other. So you can only sever off one going forward. In terms of employment areas, the new document allows for the conversion of employment lands to other uses subject to tests. But interestingly enough, it also requires that all development within 300 meters of employment areas include avoidance or mitigation measures on the impact that any sensitive land use would have on the employment area. And then there's also a new definition in the Planning Act and the PPS for employment areas, which focuses solely on your heavier industrial activities and removes anything related to commercial or anything of that nature. On the housing front, just like a furtherance of housing related policies, the definition is expanded to include ARUs and different types of housing tenures, which is interesting. As well, the definition of affordable has now been aligned with the affordable definition in the Development Charges Act, which we knew was coming. Servicing. So they did slightly amend the wording as it relates to the servicing hierarchy. It's no longer referred to as a hierarchy. They call it servicing options now. However, they do still place full municipal services as a preferred option for residential development and growth. So looking forward, the document did contain some implementation policies. And as of October 20th, 2024, all council decisions must be consistent with the provincial planning statement. As I noted previously, the province is consulting on those transition provisions. That specifically relates to existing matters before the Ontario Land Tribunal. There will be updates to all official plans and zoning bylaws required as a result of these changes. And I have applications for settlement area boundary expansions noted on there because that is a massive change, like that is significant. And it significantly impacts the way that municipalities plan for growth. It's quite a change from how we do things currently. So implications for North Middlesex. So as I just said, this is a significant change in land use planning policy for Ontario, and necessitates all updates to planning documents. However, this does tie in nicely to the ongoing work that we're doing here. Couldn't be better timing, in my opinion. Kind of nice that we're early on in the process and that we're able to incorporate these changes. So there will be amendments or an amendment that's required to the county's official plan. And because we are in the middle of the official plan review process, my plan is to consider those changes concurrently so that we can keep the process moving forward locally here. I would just note that staff are still in the process of kind of understanding these changes and considering best practice approaches to implementation for the county and local municipalities. And we're hoping to have a bit of further direction on that in the coming weeks. But yeah, so I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Just before I go to Councillor Irwin, I do have a question on the when you talk about just being able to sever one house off of on a farm dwelling or a surplus farm dwelling, does that not go against having the farm allowing no houses? Because the farm that you're severing one house off, that means the farm is still going to have a dwelling on it then, where there's two dwellings now.
Yes. So typically when we have situations like that, we just don't rezone the balance of the land, because then we would be creating a situation whereby that dwelling would become legal non-conforming.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's typically how we deal with it.
And it's funny because we've spent, and Councillor Canelson, you'll know as well, we've spent a lot of years cleaning up some of those 2 and 3 houses on properties, and it was left for municipalities to clean those up. Now, I just wondered. Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, given now that we've got a sense of Bill 185 and a new PPS, will we get a revised schedule for our own official planning process, and what impact would that have on us?
Thank you, through the chair. So in coming weeks, my plan is to have an updated work plan for the municipality for council's consideration. There are several factors that I'll have to consider in the preparation of that new work plan, including amendments to the county official plan. As well, with the new provincial planning statement, the province has indicated that there will be several guidelines released throughout 2025. And with those guidelines comes kind of like how the municipalities formulate our policy direction on any given topic. So in the absence of some of those guidelines, I don't have like exact answers in terms of timelines for you at this time. And there is still ongoing discussion with the ministry to get a little bit more direction in that regard. So I hope to have more information on that in coming weeks, and hopefully I'll be able to answer that question a little bit more firmly with an updated work plan.
Follow up.
A follow up, Your Worship. Thank you. And through you again, can we safely assume, though, that the schedule will be longer than what we had originally anticipated?
My answer to that is yes.
Okay. Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Abby, I'm really struggling with this provincial policy thing. The longer I end this game, the more inconsistencies I see. You're asking for council to be more consistent or maintain a consistency with the provincial plan. When planning applications come forward, just about every one seems to be a custom or a one-off that we have to, we vote on, we discuss, we explore, and we go on the planner's report. What I'm asking is, with some other applications that are coming forward, they are large, and it seems as though they're non-consistent with what is being put to us. It's just outside our boundaries. Is this a rules for thee and none for me type scenario? I'm just speaking with larger operations seem to know how to move this thing through, where just something as simple as the severance of one lot here tonight, they're wanting the address changed to that street. So it seems to be the smaller the parcel, the more stricter the rules. The larger the parcel, there seems to be more lax regulations. How do we keep that consistent?
Thank you. Through the chair. So are we talking about in like an agricultural context?
More so, yes, in agricultural, yeah.
So
I guess without identifying a property that is not in this municipality, recently there was one that was severed. That was the severance is largely outside the 2.54 acres per 100. How did that come through? If this is going to be the consistency through, or that they want all councils to reflect.
So I certainly can't speak to things that have happened in other municipalities.
And I'm not
Yeah,
asking you, like,
for sure.
I'm just using that as an example, and it really isn't fair for me to bring that up, but
Yep.
I guess it's the one that it's closest, and it was, well publicized on the news.
Okay. So I would just say that when we have planning applications come before us, we process them and we evaluate them each on their own merit. And since I can't speak to the large agricultural lot that was created in another municipality, that's the best answer that I have for you. Everything that we bring forward to council, any planning recommendation is based on the provincial planning framework, the county planning framework, and then the local planning framework. And that's how we formulate our planning opinions. What council chooses to do with our professional recommendations, that's on councils. And then I will just say that sometimes things, they shake out differently in the event of an appeal. So the Ontario Land Tribunal, things can happen there, and sometimes the decisions, they don't make a lot of sense, I guess, but.
You follow up.
Yeah, just to
Okay.
follow up, Mayor Rob. So I guess what you're saying is I'm still hung up on that phrase that we as a council need to be more consistent with provincial policy. I guess really with what you've just said, we should just carry on doing what we're doing, take every application in as a custom order and go from there. Is that correct? Like,
Yeah.
make our best judgment on that.
So I think one of the points in my PowerPoint, you're taking it quite literally. So what?
am.
Yeah, that's
I am.
that's
That's
okay.
what I'm getting at.
That's okay. So essentially what the province is intending through that is that they don't want council relying on the previous provincial policy statement. They want the new policies that they've included in this planning statement to, get more homes built faster, what have you. That's what they're looking for. So that's what the intent is there in them requiring that through the implementation provisions in the document.
just a comment. So business as usual.
Take that how you will.
And I get you. I think you're voicing some of your frustration with some of these things that are handed down to us. I think we all feel some of that. But yeah, so what's good? What's next? That's the question. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Canellison.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Ashley, I have a question for you, not what we talked about before the meeting. It has to do with employment areas and agriculture. And an employment area, can agriculture industry be considered an employment area? And the reason I refer that to is that there's say, for example, there's an orchard in our community that employs 20 workers. There are farming operations that, whether it be beef or livestock, that employ 50 workers to 20 workers. Are they employment or are they agriculture, and how do you differentiate between the two?
So those are considered agricultural uses. That would be within an agricultural designation, an agricultural zone. What the province is moving towards through this new definition is your heavy industrial manufacturing type uses, warehousing type uses, and essentially protecting those heavy industrial uses from sensitive land uses encroaching. So while agricultural operations may be large employers, the definition change through the provincial planning documents is intended to protect your heavy industrial type land uses that also do employ.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. My follow-up question to that is then, when the agriculture industry requires housing for their workers, they sometimes face challenges in getting the permits to construct the housing. Now, if it's given for agriculture, there should be no barriers. Sometimes there is. Why is that?
So that would certainly be a completely valid comment within like the current provincial planning framework. I would just note that the new provincial planning statement does include farm worker housing as an agricultural use. So even on like a remnant parcel from a surplus farm dwelling severance, farmers would be permitted to build housing for their workers there. So they are trying to make it easier for farmers to build housing for their workers.
So did you just say that if their house has been severed off of a property, that housing could be built on that property for their workers?
Only for their workers.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
different from what I thought we talked about earlier, but thank you for that.
Okay. Any other questions? No other questions? Need a motion to accept this report for information at this time. Deputy Mayor Hodgins, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Abby. Our next one is from a report from Brandon McLeod, Manager of Public Works and Public Works Operator.
Through your worship, this report is following up from the 2024 budget review. Staff are recommending hiring an operator 2 for the Public Works Division. This position will make sure the municipality is keeping compliance with Ontario Reg 23902 minimum standards and with Ontario Traffic Manual. So in this position, in the spring, summer, and fall, this position will do all the road patrols that must be done every 14 days on our class 4 roads. In accordance with Ontario Reg 23902. They will also do our annual inspections, sidewalk inspections, operate at the transfer station when it's open, complete inspections of our road allowance work permits when they're investigate service requests to help with that, do the cemetery operations, organize all signage for our fresh gravel program, do traffic signage inspections, manage sign inventory, and also do any other operator 2 job descriptions. In the winter season, this position will have their own snowplow route, and this position will assist with jobs and projects when other staff are away. Since this position or operator 2 position will have their own snowplow route, one of the 2 seasonal positions would be eliminated as a result of this addition.
Thank you, Brandon. Questions from council? Councillor Irwin, then Councillor Canellis.
Thank you, your worship. I'm just trying to understand why this position is coming forward at this time and not in our budget deliberations in 2 months.
So do you want to answer that one? Canellis?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
To your worship, I just bring to your attention, council, back to the time of our budget discussions for 2024. At that time, this position was discussed. The amount for the position was put into budget for the portion of the year that it would be hired for. But it was asked that staff bring back a report about this time to determine if it was necessary. As council may recall, 2 positions were discussed at that time at budget, and one was approved to go ahead immediately, and this one was asked to be deferred until this point in time when it could be brought back to council.
Okay. Councillor Canellis.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I agree with everything our CEO said, with the exception that I thought there was supposed to be an evaluation, which I don't see forthcoming. However, thank you for your report there, Brandon. And I do have some questions for you, if you don't mind. And that is that in having been here for a number of years, as you may well know, in previous years, the Public Works Department was responsible for the water system, okay, which we did lose 3 to Aqua, and they assumed that responsibility. They're responsible for building roads, which has not been done recently. The Public Works are also responsible for the tree maintenance program and removing the trees, which has since been contracted out to other contract providers and services here. So I'm having some difficulty in having to explain to some of our ratepayers how to justify the addition of not 1, but 2 additional workers, which will with the addition of these 2 workers will in fact bring forth that we're going to have more workers now than we did when they did all those extra responsibilities. Help me understand how I can explain this to our ratepayers.
Right, through your worship, going back to when we had water and public works, the water department at that time only assisted public works in wintertime. They had their own snowplow routes. They didn't do anything else helping public works at all. From my knowledge, when I've been here, going to tree service, the only time we contract out trees to a point is when we don't have the staff or time to do it, or in town we contract out because of all the hydro lines. We don't have staff trained to work around them. Going to try to think of road building. Yes, we haven't done any for a long time, but we have been in discussions about maybe reshaping roads and all that. That is something I'm looking into to do more in the future.
Yep. Just as a follow-up then, Brandon, my next question for you is that, and you may be aware that in the spring, we had a delegation here expressing significant concern about the condition of our gravel roads. Okay, so my question for you then is, with the addition of the 2 workers this year, what can the community expect? How can the improvements to the roads be? Will it be improved? Will it be more consistent? Will it be better maintained?
Through your worship, yes. So now we have 6 operator 1s. So 3 primary, 3 alternates. And so when the primary operators are not here, the alternates will take over and the graders are out to improve the service on our gravel roads. With this other position coming now would help us get out there and assess situations before we can maybe get calls, so we know what roads need to be graded and all that, because they're going to be traveling the roads every day.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Brandon, this might be just off the report that you brought forward, but in discussion the other day, you had mentioned we have 3 road graders and 6 operators. Can we have a road grader per ward with our largest gravel roads daily? So McGilvery Township has 1 road grader working daily, or as need be. East Williams have 1 and West Williams have 1 as well on a daily basis.
Through your worship, yes, the gravel program forever has been, each ward has a grader that kind of goes there. The only time when we might take 1 away from one ward is to assist on another one that has a bit more needs a bit more attention to it. but that's usually a day or two, then it goes back to that ward.
Are we currently doing some road grading now?
Through your worship, yes, we are in the process of starting fall grading, and it will be all about weather too, because I really don't want to grade if it's too dry.
Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Hodgins.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Just as the summer has progressed, we have a new director of public works and another fellow has moved up into lead hand. Is this the reason why there's maybe an opening in operator one and why we're looking for somebody? If somebody's just because of the move ups?
Through your worship, yes, it's been a domino effect moving in position over position. And yes, we just have filled the last position that we have, and this one will be a new one.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if that's, the positions proposed tonight is not a domino effect. This is a completely new position. Just to clarify, I wasn't sure if that was, and it's an operator 2, not 1, just to clarify as well. But yes, to the answer to the question as well, we have had postings both internal and external, which were as a result of a domino effect that did take place with the movement of our staff within our organization.
Thank you.
But this is not that case.
Other questions from council on this? I have just a comment. We talk a lot about the graders and everything, but I know that Brandon, you and I have had conversations about ditching and cleaning ditches because it isn't all just because of the surface. It's water not getting away. And can you expand a little bit to council on that?
Yes, through your worship. So yeah, a lot of our roads, the ditching program hasn't been the greatest in the past here in this municipality. My goal is to start taking on that more, to do some ditching, maybe a bit of surveying on the roads. And some of the wider roads, maybe reshape them, looking to see how much it would to reshape them and get them back to not being 32 feet wide, because you really can't get a crown in that because it's so wide, and to bring the ditch up to what it needs to be. So yes, there is going forward, we're trying to start a ditching program here where we can tackle certain roads that are more important to get done in the process.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? Council Canales?
I just want to finalize by saying that I appreciate your responses. I really like the things that you're saying and what your plans are. It looks like good things will improve significantly. So thank you for that.
Any other questions? No questions. We have a recommendation in front of us. What's your wish? You're moving the recommendation, by Councillor Nerda, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. In favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next report is from Jaden Hodgins, and that's on the community safety zones.
Thank you, your worship, and through you. The purpose of this report is to provide information to council regarding community safety zones, following up from a discussion at a previous council meeting regarding traffic speeding issues on Queen Street in Elsa Craig. So the report provides background information about what community safety zones are and how they are implemented by municipal or county bylaw. Through this review process, staff did consult with County of Middlesex as well as OPP for feedback on community safety zones. The county noted that in their experience, community safety zones are generally not an effective method of changing driver behaviors. And they also noted the importance of having a commitment from OPP for ongoing enforcement of community safety zones. The OPP noted that they would be available to support the municipality in any traffic calming efforts that we undertake, including conducting patrols in community safety zones. And the OPP also noted that they do conduct traffic patrols based on community feedback about traffic violations and speeding. So as noted in the report, in staff's opinion, the implementation of community safety zones and signs may not achieve the desired results to reduce traffic speed and or public safety concerns related to traffic. And there may be better alternatives that we could explore, such as gateway features and public education campaigns complemented with speed enforcement in partnership with the OPP. I'm available to answer any questions of council.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council? Who wants to start? Councilor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think this is a good first step of information gathering in terms of this issue. I'm not sure how my fellow councilors, what kind of feedback you've gotten from your constituents, but I get incredible feedback from our constituents around speed and safety on our streets and in our community. I have a motion to make later after discussion on this issue, Your Worship. So I'd like to come back to that. If there's when there is an opportunity, I should say. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions on this? Councilor Nelson.
And I will support what Councilor Irwin was saying. I get a few calls as well for the speed of traffic here in this particular community. I don't know if Councilor Nerda does or not, but the traffic that goes up and down Main Street here, that at excessive rates of speed, there's a lot of question as to why is there no enforcement, and I don't know if there's anything to be followed up on that, but I would agree with what Councilor Irwin is saying on that. Oh, by the way, at Sylvan Road, Brandon, you and I talked about that the other day, is a hazard zone as well.
Sorry, I missed the last comment.
It's a hazard zone as well. There's people there that drive well in excess of 140 kilometers an hour.
Okay.
Well in excess.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Nerda.
I was gonna bring this up in other business, but Jaden, you and I have had some conversations yesterday and today about Mill Street and how there was 3 signs posted that were removed. And I know that they were unauthorized signs. I do have concerns about the little residents that live on Mill Street, Victoria Street, and West Park Drive, especially with the new developments that are going to be going in on West Park. What would be the best way to reduce speed? Is it to install a 4-way stop sign at Union and Mill? Can we put signs that are authorized by the municipality as such as slow down? As you say here, a community safety zones, saying that you enter into a residential area, maybe coming off of Park Hill Drive down Victoria, and maybe off of Highway 7 down West Park, saying that you're entering into a residential area. We need to increase police. And I do know that you have been in contact with the police. So I thank you for that. And I know the residents thank you for that.
Jaden.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilor Nerda, through you, Your Worship. I believe it's a combination of tools and techniques for traffic calming as well as education. I think we have found that for the areas where we see probably the worst speeding, which would be the entrances to our settlement areas or our urban areas, where it's from a higher speed road into a speed reduces. I think we've had good results with our radar speed signs. And speaking with peers within the county, other municipalities, I think others have said that those have been effective tools for them as well. That's one tool we can use. I think education is good, just getting information and reminding drivers to obey speed limits and be respectful when driving through neighborhoods. It does help as well. Certainly we do work in partnership with the OPP, and we will encourage residents to pass on their concerns to OPP so that they can do their patrols when they get those complaints. And as noted in the report, when they get a significant amount of complaints, they would even do these more directed patrols where they might have someone assigned to that area for a longer duration to monitor and collect data on the traffic issues and provide more of a long duration presence. Something else that we would do, we hear the complaints and we take them seriously. We will conduct reviews of the street ourselves to just monitor conditions and do those reviews to make sure that we do have the proper signage up. Although adding more stop signs may not be technically the correct way to deal with things as per the Ontario Traffic Manual. I think there are certain situations where they may make sense and it may break up the flow of traffic somewhat. So we did develop a policy to review all-way stop locations. So really, I think traffic calming is a very broad subject. There's lots of tools and techniques. You know, policies can be developed for these things as well. But we kind of take all these different measures into consideration for these situations.
Okay, follow up.
Just a follow-up, so are there signs that we can post that would be in accordance with the Ontario Traffic Manual? Are there signs out there that we can post, or how do residents post these signs themselves?
Thank you for that question. Through you, your worship. The Ontario Traffic Manual is quite prescriptive in application of signs, and there aren't really those sort of, you know, slow down kids playing signs. Those aren't regulatory or warning signs for the Ontario Traffic Manual. Certainly, residents can install signs on their own property. That sometimes helps, or just more community oriented signs. Those may help as well. But in accordance with the Ontario Traffic Manual, it really does actually, you know, discourage non-standard signs to be installed within the right of way, just because it may create visual clutter and may result in less adherence to the other traffic signs. And it does talk about creating a false sense of security, which may actually lead to more issues.
And just one more follow-up. I know you're going to be speaking to this later, but with our mobile speed radar, what do we have a time estimate and when that will be fixed?
Through your worship, we do not yet. We did just get the 3 new signs. So we're looking at doing those implementations, and you know, if it's possible to retrofit that mobile trailer potentially with one of the new signs, we'll look at that. But we are working on getting that one repaired.
And Jaden, would it be possible to put one of those either on Mill Street or on Victoria Street? Subject to my council's comments too on that.
Yeah. Through the mayor, certainly this is a good example. And this is where it's good to have that trailer unit to deploy it for these you know, problematic areas on shorter durations. So yeah, certainly.
Thank you, Jaden.
Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Jaden, I just a question here. The question's been raised before about traffic coming into Elsie Craig, in through Park Hill, and even through Nairn for that fact. Do you think actually an OPP presence there for an hour, an afternoon, or something like that with a radar setup, is that something that we need to move forward to get OPP presence, or do they take this upon themselves? Because certainly when you reach into somebody's pocket and take a couple of points and a couple $100 out of them, that certainly slows things down.
Through the mayor, you know, through our discussions with OPP about community safety zones and through Inspector Stewart's delegations to council, you know, I think traffic is a high priority for him, and I think they are willing to assist. So I think just having that ongoing communication with them and sharing our problem areas. We did get them set up with access to our radar speed sign data, so they are able to access that. And yeah, we're working with them to just, you know, partner with them and do their patrols. I think it is, you know, a very effective tool just to have that presence out there.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to discuss a potential motion to continue information gathering, and I think, and I believe we all agree that our public, our constituents have a lot to say in this matter. So I'd like to find a way to consult with our public, perhaps through a survey and questionnaire, on their concerns around road safety and speed. Not to have leading questions, but to gather information that we can use to help us make a decision, and we can also share with the OPP. So I'd like to make that motion that we engage in a public survey, for lack of a better term, on issues around road safety and speed.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by Counselor Nerda. Discussion on that? No discussion? In favor of that? Carried. Okay, follow up?
And one additional point of consideration, your worship, and not necessarily a motion, but maybe something staff would consider. I would be interested in benchmarks in terms of communities that have brought in community safety zones and are they successful or not. It would be nice to find success stories if there are any out there, given the information presented in the report to us this evening.
Okay. I think we can just put that forward as direction, not really a motion or anything. Okay. Anything else? Okay, we need a motion to accept that report for information. Counselor Nerda, Counselor Irwin, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Committee reports, Lake Huron Primary.
Tomorrow afternoon, there's a meeting,
Okay.
2:30.
ABCA,
Yeah, I have several things here.
okay,
First of all, we have not had an agricultural representative appointed to our board as yet, and throughout all of Ontario, there's only been 5 that have been appointed. They are appointed by the province, and they have not yet done so for the Sauba Bayfield. I know that our communications and economic development coordinator did send out an email recently about a dinner for the Park Hill Trails that the Sauba Bayfield is hosting at Nico's Restaurant here on October 21st, I believe. And I received an email from Nathan today encouraging that we promote this as much as possible to raise funds for the Park Hill Trails. So I think tickets are $50 a person. Call it Geek Night, I think, or is it Greek Night?
Greek night.
Greek Night, not
Greek
Geek
night.
Night. Okay. And finally, the conservation authorities are sending letters to municipalities. I think Mayor Ropp, I don't know if you received yours yet or not, requesting support for the Sauba Bayfield or conservation authorities to increase their fees due to the pressures that the conservation authorities are feeling for the permits being issued in a quicker manner to accommodate some of the planning that we actually heard tonight for more homes built faster. Interestingly enough, while they want to increase the fees for that particular process, they didn't seem to have any interest in increasing fees to compensate for the asset management requirements that they want to download as a levy. So I found that interesting, and I did bring that up and pointed it out to them. I didn't receive much of a comment on that. But anyway, those are the things I have to say about the Sauba Bayfield Conservation Authority.
I have not received that letter. I would remember that email.
It is
I
coming.
have not received it
It
yet.
is coming.
Any questions for Councilor Connellson for ABCA? ABCA is they're in the midst of doing a video, working with the trail groups and stuff. They're doing a video to help promote the trails, and Tim Cummings, I believe, is doing that. So yeah, look forward to seeing that. Okay, Blue Water Recycling.
Just the information that's been forwarded for information.
Okay, any questions on that? Seeing none. Economic Development,
We have a meeting October 17th.
Local School Advisory.
Your worship, I'm in the middle of meeting with the principals of the 5 area schools to talk about a shift in the local school advisory committee mandate from to be more project center, as was discussed at the last meeting. I'll have more to report at our next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? No. Rec Committee.
We had a meeting last week.
Okay.
Successful.
Successful enough that Councilor Daigle got to go on recreation.
Forward the minutes. My
Okay.
2 counterparts are not with me, so I'm hanging out there saying this.
Okay, Policy Review Committee. I don't think there's anything there right now. Fire Committee. Nothing. Budget Committee, we met once with Councilor Nerda, Councilor Keogh, and it was just a very broad discussion on the process and just some ideas of where we'd like to see it head. And so we'll go there. Community Development Fund, nothing there. Aqua,
We actually met on September the 26th. There was some discussions with regards to the Housing Water Enabling Fund. I hope I'm describing it correctly. The second round is out, and so I did gather some information from that I'm hopeful that will be beneficial to us for our next submission. But as far as anything else, I don't think there's anything else that really affects our municipality that we discussed.
okay, thank you. Middlesex County OPP Detachment Board.
Thank you, Mayor. Waiting patiently for our October 30th final first meeting. Finally gonna have one.
It's one of the most patient boards I've ever seen.
Finally gonna hopefully get started.
Yes, I hope so too. That'd be good. Okay, correspondence, Kitchener. Kitchener renovictions. Receive and file. Brantford improved municipal codes and conduct and enforcement. Receive and file. Other and urgent business, Brandon.
So, Mayor Ott, members of council, there is a lease agreement with the North Middlesex Stars on the agenda tonight. The lease agreement is crucial to them getting a camera system installed for live streaming their games. Their target date is to have it up and running for the PJHL prospect game, which you may recall I brought back in May to this council for their support of. One thing that was required from NBC Sports was that they have a lease agreement in place before they would actually sign off their agreement with the club. Originally, they wanted to sign off with the facility. I preferred them to go through the club so that the Stars would take all liability from that camera. The lease agreement foundation is from our lease agreement with Damon Optimal. So in terms of insurance that's required, and just making sure that both parties are covered in the event of any lawsuits, litigation, I did take an existing agreement that we had legal review on. I didn't get this one independently legally reviewed, but I have sent it forth. So pending that coming back, what I would like to do is if there's anything major outstanding, add and then get sign off from there. But what I am looking for is the ability to negotiate the clauses a little further and then have the mayor and clerk endorse this. Throughout the agreement, it is just standard practices that have always existed. They've always had equipment places. They've always had their own dressing room. They've always had a coach's room. So it's just identifying those spaces, having a little bit of a fee towards those. And in terms in anything that happens in that space, flood damage, etc., those items would be covered through this. So that the motion would be that council approves the lease in principle and that the director of community services is delegated the authority to further negotiate clauses in the lease prior to the mayor and clerk endorsement.
Thank you. Questions on that? Councilor Nerda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brandon, I'm pleased that this has gone to legal for a quick review, but my second, I know we had discussed it. I don't see in here anything about that the club would be responsible for the camera system if it were to break or if it was damaged in any way.
So through the mayor to the councillor, because the agreement says that they are it's their camera system, the camera system is theirs to operate. If it's not working, they'll fix it. Otherwise, we won't have a camera. So to me, I know it doesn't specifically state that, but because it is their system to operate, for us, if it breaks, I'm not paying to fix it. So if they want the camera, they'll have to pay to fix it, or there's no camera.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? No other questions. We have a recommendation in front of you. What's your wish? Moved by Councillor Keogh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Other business?
Brandon, can you give us the highlights of the new scoreboard? I went to have a look at it today. It's pretty interesting.
So to the mayor and council, our new scoreboard is active. We've had our first junior game with it. Some of the highlights of it is there's goal animations now. So when somebody scores a goal, you get the red light up. There are additional features that I'm talking to minor hockey as well as the Stars about, contributing towards a instant replay camera that when you score a goal, it flashes back 15 seconds and shows what happened. So, for a 9-year-old kid who comes in and scores a goal, he sees the goal light go off and he looks up on the screen and sees his goal. I think it's pretty reasonable price. So if the two organizations want to partner on it and pay for it, that's what I'm looking for so that we don't have cost here. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. The feedback I've got is that people find it a lot easier to read. They have no issues with it, which our past scoreboard, that was quite a common complaint. And moving forward, I'm looking forward to being able to host other types of events during the summer months on the
on the floor with that. So.
We talked about it today when the Leafs are in the finals. It's going to be on the big screen. I knew that'd create conversation. Go ahead. Sorry.
I have one more question for
Yeah.
our director there, if I may. And that is, I noticed that there's shots on goal requirement as well. And I know for the Stars, someone probably does that. Are the rink rats going to do that for the minor hockey?
No, so through the mayor to the councillor, what the plan is to take it over the first few months, make adjustments, have a minor hockey version and have a Stars version. And then with the minor hockey version where shots on goal is, you'll probably see rolling advertisements.
Okay, Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, first, I want to congratulate the ongoing information we're getting on our website in terms of upcoming events. And I'd like to add that perhaps some of these events should be a separate email to council so we don't miss them. So for example, I know I didn't realize until Monday that we're fire station open house this Saturday for both fire stations. And that's, some councils just raised their eyebrows, so they probably didn't know that either. And
Thank you, Councillor Irwin.
or the Hall of Fame dinner, November 2nd, or other important events that councilors should be at. So not me. So I'm wondering if we could add to that and just have a prompt as councilors on important events so that we don't miss them as council. Not all the events are obviously, but those things like the Fire Hall Open House or the Hall of Fame dinner, those sorts of events.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Currently we are looking at our events calendar on our website and we're actually working with the web developers. So we can take that feedback back to them and ask if there's a way when an event gets added to that calendar, whether it can spit out an automated email to council@northmiddlesex.on.ca where you guys would get new event added and then into your email.
Follow up.
Not all events. I mean, but the ones that we as council members should be at. I mean, I'm glad I saw the Fire Hall Open House because I would not want to miss that as an example, right?
Right.
And certainly we are trying to break it down for users, because the one thing we do find is that if we start allowing everything on there, it's going to be overload. So having different filters on there for important community events would be one thing, and perhaps that's the one that notifies council. So.
Okay. Any other business? No other business? Just have one item and I want to thank staff for Monday's program. A number of us were at Truth and Reconciliation program, and I want to thank the staff for putting that together. It's very good, and each time we learn something new, and Kristen especially. And we ended the program off, and I hadn't really heard of this, as we offered our tobacco to the fire. That's how it ended. It was very informative. And I want to just congratulate staff for that. If there's no other business, where are we going here? Okay. Deferred items, communications, county council. Councillor Canellis.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I read the report on communication from county council with a great deal of interest. And I was specifically looking at the economic development component of it. Can you give us an update on the strategy or what's coming forward with economic development at county level?
So it is turning to a corporation, which has got a very different direction on it. And if you look, I think it's such a large document. If you go on the county agenda and look at the presentation that was given to council, it is a large, where it's sitting right now, it's going to, because it's a large ask financially as well. The presentation was 900,000 to $1 million. And so it's going to the budget committee to talk about that portion of it. And I will say, I'm interested to hear from staff how they're going to use and what their thoughts are on spending and using that amount of money. It is a large ask. And so I think the best way is to really to have a look at that presentation. There's a lot to it, and there's certainly more involved than just tourism. And it's focusing much more on business growth and retention. That's a large focus of it. Okay.
Yes, and I did click on that hyperlink to browse through that document, which is a very interesting read. If anyone has time and you're bored, it's certainly something worth looking at.
It is. It's a very good document. Yeah. Any other questions for the county? Okay. Deputy Mayor Hodgins.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question is, do you know of any timeline for the paving of Denfield Road? Heading into the fall season, and a lot of farmers are wondering how much they're gonna be interrupted by paving on that road. If you know a timeline.
Yeah, well, they were doing the last week. Last week they were finishing up the electrical at the corner there. So because they're putting lights in that intersection. So they were doing they had to wait for hydro to get put in there. That was a bit of a, so I don't have the exact dates, but I believe it's supposed to be here in October. That's what I believe. I can confirm that for you and send it through to council. Okay. Any other questions for the county? Seeing none, you have also the update for the health unit, and then we'll go to reading of the bylaws.
Thank you, your worship. That bylaws 81 of 2024, 82 of 2024, 83 of 2024, and 84 of 2024 be read first and second time.
Counselor Nerda, Counselor Keo, all in favor? Carried.
Thank you, your worship. That bylaws 83 of 2024 and 84 of 2024 be read third and final time.
Third and final, Deputy Mayor Hodgins, Counselor Irwin, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And we have no closed session here this evening. And so it's just a motion to adjourn. Counselor Irwin, Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried.